The day I was released from prison, I accidentally found $1 billion. Before starting the account, this story was taken from Reddit in another country, so some words might be confusing due to translation. Enjoy the story. I immediately dialed my father's number with excitement, but he hung up every time I called. Worried that something might have happened at home, I ran all the way there. But as soon as I reached the door, I heard my brother's wife complaining. Why did he get out? Shouldn't someone like him die in prison? My mother replied, when he comes back, we'll kick him out and let him die like a poor man. Hearing their conversation made my heart sink to the bottom. I was in prison because I had to take the fall for my brother. I also paid for this house. I took care of them with all my heart, but they did this to me. I wanted to turn around and leave, but I couldn't help but knock on the door. My mother opened the door and pretended to be surprised. Ethan, you're back so soon? Your father just mentioned he was going to pick you up. After saying that, she looked me up and down, forcing a pained expression. You've suffered and lost so much weight over these years. Wishing I hadn't heard their conversation at the door and that her concern was genuine, I replied with a touch of bitterness. It's okay. Taxis are convenient here. I walked into the house. As I spoke, Vivian immediately came up and sprayed me with alcohol as if she was trying to empty the whole bottle on me. Don't think too much. I'm just using alcohol to cleanse you of any bad luck, she said, trying to make sure I didn't read too much into it. But her face was full of undisguised contempt. She despised me for being an ex-convict, but seemed to have forgotten that I went to prison for her and Leo. Without saying a word, I walked straight to my room. Don't bother looking. There's no space for you in this house, I heard my father say as I took a few steps. He was sitting on the sofa, smoking, with the ashtray full of fresh cigarette butts. My arrival seemed to have greatly annoyed him. I stopped and looked at him. Dad, I've only been in prison for 3 years. I didn't die. Do I not even deserve a room in this house? Dad stubbed out his cigarette and said with conviction, there are so many of us in the family and only a few rooms. There's no free space for you. I didn't argue with him, but asked, where's Leo? Does he feel the same? At that moment, Leo came out of the bathroom and looked at me with some difficulty. Ethan, Vivian is 2 months pregnant. If you live at home, there really isn't enough space. But it's okay, you're my brother. Everything will be for you first. If you really want to live here, I'll make space in the baby's room, which was already prepared. Leo was quite direct with his response. I nodded and said directly, sure, she won't be born for another 8 months. I'll just stay here for a while. Upon hearing this, Leo's expression froze. He moved his lips as if he wanted to say something, but stopped. Vivian couldn't hold back anymore. She angrily approached and yelled at me. How can you be so selfish? Can't you see the house is crowded? And you really have the nerve to take our baby's room? You have a lot of nerve. I couldn't help but laugh at her anger. I looked at her and responded, we all used to fit. I've only been in prison, and your child hasn't even been born yet. Why is there not enough space now? And have you forgotten that I paid for this house in full? My father abruptly slammed the table and said in a stern tone, Ethan, watch your attitude. Do you think it's great that you bought a house with a full payment? Do you want to take the house away from us just after getting out of prison? I replied with disappointment. I'm not asking you to give me the house. You're not even offering me a room to stay in. My father said, I've already told you, there's no space for you at home. If you want to find a place to live, rent a house on your own. We don't owe you anything. My father looked at me harshly, making it clear that I was no longer welcome. A fine thing to not owe me anything. You all cried, begging me to take the blame for Leo. You said that if I took the blame, I would be the family's benefactor and that you would reward me. All I want now is to live in the room that was originally mine. Is that too much to ask? Is this how you plan to reward me? I spoke, every word laced with a whirlwind of emotions churning in my chest. It was Leo and Vivian who had been driving my car at high speed and in the wrong direction when they crashed into someone. My parents immediately came to see me. They said they had worked so hard to get Leo into a prestigious university with a bright future ahead, and that this accident shouldn't ruin his life. I, on the other hand, was just an ordinary employee at a small company with a future that paled in comparison to my brother's. So they begged me with tears in their eyes to take the blame for Leo, saying the family would be grateful and reward me once I got out of prison. I didn't do it for any reward. I did it out of love for my parents and Leo, sacrificing my own future to take his place in prison. To protect Leo, I sold my car, exhausted my savings, and lost my job. I paid the compensation, took the blame, and endured all the insults on his behalf. 3 years in prison were a torment I endured, but I held on. But I never expected that instead of a deeper sense of family, what awaited me was absolute betrayal. My dear family had become ungrateful people who would discard me once my usefulness was over. Ethan, I know you're upset, but we've also been through tough times these past 3 years. Having a criminal in the family made us the subject of ridicule wherever we went. If you really lived here, we'd be even more of a laughingstock. Can't you think of us for once? Leo, for whom I had given up everything, now revealed his true thoughts. In his eyes, I was now a burden who had brought shame to the family. Any last hope in my heart was completely extinguished. There was no warmth left in this home. All my sacrifices had become the biggest joke. Looking at Leo with a condescending attitude, I said coldly, "Leo, don't forget that it was you who should have been in prison. You are the one who brought shame to the family. If you truly cared about the family's reputation, you should have taken responsibility back then, instead of enjoying my sacrifices, occupying my house, and shamelessly blaming me for not thinking about you." Hearing this, Leo blushed immediately with anger and embarrassment and retorted irritably, "You took the blame, but I've already thanked you. What more do you want from me? You're my older brother. Wasn't it your duty? Do you really need to keep reminding me of such a trivial matter?" Leo spoke as if my 3-year sentence was similar to when I used to give him the biggest piece of chicken. His simple gratitude was supposed to settle the debt. My father, as always, defended Leo and scolded me. As Leo's older brother, you want recognition for doing a small favor. How can you be so petty? Yes, you're a useless criminal living off the family. If you depend on us, what will happen when my child is born? Vivian, rubbing her belly, spoke ruthlessly. My mother also looked serious and told me, "Ethan, your father and I are still hoping for a grandchild. You're no longer young. Even if you go out and rent a place on your own, that's the right thing to do." They echoed each other. Each phrase pierced my heart like a sharp knife. I was utterly disappointed, but my eyes still watered uncontrollably. Looking at them, I murmured, "No wonder you never visited me. Once, during the 3 years I was in prison, I convinced myself that you were too busy to see me, so you just found me embarrassing." I tilted my head back, holding back tears, and then asked coldly and clearly, "I'll ask you a question. Are you determined to kick me out today?" "Yes," my father replied without hesitation. My mother, Leo, and Vivian all had resolute expressions. Clearly, there was no room for negotiation. I couldn't see a trace of affection in their eyes. I nodded and declared resolutely, "Fine, from today on, I cut all ties with you. I hope you don't regret it. This family isn't worth my attachment. The $100 million I had planned to share with you has nothing to do with you now." With that, I left the house without looking back. Behind me came Vivian's resentful roar. "Stop pretending." As soon as I mentioned the money, everyone looked at me in confusion and practically in shock. As I was leaving, they asked what money I was talking about, and I ended up revealing that I had found $1 billion. They doubted it because it was such a huge amount, and I think you readers might doubt it too. But what I hadn't mentioned in the earlier parts of this story was that I found a lottery ticket, decided to play those same numbers, and that's how I won the money. I told my family about this, and immediately they changed their attitude, but not to a happy one. Rather, it turned to more anger because they thought I should give them the entire prize, not just $100 million for Ethan. They argued that if it weren't for Ethan, I wouldn't have gone to prison and found that money. I said that after all the disdain and being kicked out of the house, they still wanted me to give them my money. I left immediately without a second thought. After many missed calls and a few weeks of complete silence, I thought I could have some peace, but unfortunately, I was wrong. Can you believe that my own family sued me for the prize money, claiming that Ethan should have been the one who went to prison and seen the ticket? I couldn't believe it and spared no expense on lawyers because I thought it was outrageous. After losing years of my life in prison because of him, they still had the nerve to try to take what was mine? During the entire process, it was almost surreal. My lawyer advised me to stay silent during the trial because the jury might side with my family, but I couldn't hold back when they shamelessly claimed I didn't deserve the money because I went to prison in Ethan's place. At that moment, my lawyer held me back from speaking and showed that I was innocent and that what he did was a crime. He argued that giving my winning ticket to them would be unjust since it had nothing to do with them and requested a multi-million-dollar fine for the unjust imprisonment, with Ethan serving additional time for lying. My family started shouting that it was absurd, that I was ungrateful, and I honestly cried at that moment for all the negative things they said about me, even after everything they had done. Fortunately, the jury voted in my favor, and the judge decided they should sell the house to pay me compensation and ordered not only Ethan's imprisonment, but also my family's for being complicit. I was also sentenced for pretending to be the author of the crime, but the judge only imposed a bail amount that I could easily cover with the prize money. My family was outraged, and while I could have sought to overturn the sentence, I wanted to see them go through everything I went through, and I haven't heard from them since. Do you think I did the right thing?